Hi, my name is Hilary Michels Dunning, and I'm the Tuesday Muse. Welcome to our second show. And our show, in case you missed the first one, is all about where creativity cultivates wellness. Today, you are in for a very huge treat. I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Jan Phillips. She's a visionary thought leader, an award-winning author, an in-demand keynote speaker, very dynamic. She does workshops all over the world, I think like 23 countries, is that right?
That's right.
You've written 5 books. One of them, Marry Your Muse, won a big award, the Ben Franklin Award and the Athena Award, am I correct?
Yes.
And let's see, you've done a one-woman peace pilgrimage all over the world.
Yes.
Part of it on a Honda motorcycle. I want to hear more about that.
Okay.
And anyway, I recently had the pleasure of sitting down with Jan and Janice Stanfield, who was my first guest on the Tuesday Muse, for those of you who tuned in. And if you're like me, you may have heard of Jan, you may have bumped into her at certain events, but I didn't really know much about Jan, and I'd always wanted to. So while I listened to these two incredible women talk about an upcoming amazing women's symposium that Jan is putting on, I was absolutely floored. And I thought, oh my God, she is talking about everything that I feel in my heart, everything that my show is about. And this is someone who I am really, really just so happy to get to know and so happy to have you on my show. So thank you so much for coming and being on. And I wanted to share you with the world because you have so much to offer about creativity, cultivating wellness. So tell me a little bit about, I think maybe I'd like to know what was the sort of genesis of how you've gotten on this path of creativity and authoring books and speaking. I mean, was this something that you've done your whole life, or was there a life-changing sort of change of direction?
It was a change of direction, a major one, because I was creative by necessity. You know how they say necessity is the mother of invention?
Mm-hmm.
So I never had a clue that I was a creative person, but one indicator was that I was in the convent for a little while, and in the novitiate I went to our novice director and asked her, could we have folk masses, play the guitar and sing folk songs? And she said no. And I said, why not? She says, because we can't afford to buy all that music. Mm-hmm. So I said to her, well, what about if I write the music and we don't have to buy anything?
How about that?
And so she says, well, if you can do that, then yes, we can have folk masses. Mm-hmm. So that's an example of how necessity is the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
So it turns out that my creativity first manifested, I think, in the music area. But then I fell in love with photography. And as a photographer, I discovered the healing power of photography, because what I learned is that whenever we do anything that's our creative thing, whether it's cooking or photography or singing or anything, that activity roots you in the present moment because you lose time. Mm-hmm. So when you're engaged in your creative thing, your creative craft or art, when you're engaged in that process, you're fully in the present moment. So therefore you can't be hurt. Not by the past, not by the future. Mm-hmm. This is the sacred moment.
You know what I call that? I call that moving meditation.
Yeah.
For me, whether it's cooking or composing or even running. And I've written probably most of my songs on my CD, either while walking the dog in the canyon or running. So moving meditation,
it's moving meditation,
keeping you in the present moment.
Exactly.
It's fabulous.
It's like keeping your mind still while your body does its creative work. Mm-hmm. And so when I asked myself, well, how can I use photographs in the service of a better world? Then I started to accumulate my photos of peace movements, because I was a peace activist.
Right.
And I turned them into slideshows. And one day when I read a book called The 100th Monkey, it's about changing consciousness without using language, just being aware of your energy field, being aware of the power of your body language, your whole electromagnetic field that really causes people to think and act differently. And I read that book and I thought, wow, I could be the 100th person. I could really have an effect on global consciousness by carrying my intention really powerfully and having my photographs, sharing slideshows with people around the world, because we know a picture is worth how many words?
1,000 words.
So there you have it. There's like major ways that we can have an impact in the world by just thinking, yes, I love to do this thing, I love to paint, I love to knit, whatever. But the next step to make it an evolutionary creativity is to say, okay, how can I apply this in the world so that it can create a community of consciousness that becomes a force for good?
Right, and the thing is, I think it's important to, no matter what it is that you are passionate about, is that it's never too late to start that. I don't think that you should ever put it aside because, oh, I'm raising my family, or oh, I'm too old, or that sort of chatter that we hear all the time. It's absolutely not true, and you can start at any time or pick it back up at any time, because who knows who you're going to touch. I personally know, as I've gotten older, I've gotten over myself. I've kind of got, I'm over it.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I just want to do what's in my heart, because I tell younger people, do what you love, because you're going to end up doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
willingly. Throw your whole self into it.
Yeah.
I read a story the other day that was commenting on the number of baby boomers who really are feeling anxious because they're about to have time on their hands and they don't know what to do with it. If I could buy their time, I would buy their time, because I have enough material for 3 lifetimes. But I'm thinking, what you just said about no matter what age, particularly those of us heading into our Act 3, after the kids are gone, after everybody's laundry is done, after we finish cooking meals for everybody, this is our time. And this is our time not just to dedicate time for our creative work, but also to do that work in community with other women, and to explore imaginatively how we can make that even bigger.
Now tell me about this women's symposium that you have coming up. I think you have a big thing coming up.
It's a very big thing.
June.
It's in June.
It's
from June 20th through the 23rd. It's at Skidmore College in upstate New York, a beautiful campus a little bit north of Albany, New York. It's a symposium called Women's Voices for a Change, because the facts are we have been silenced. And in many, many ways. And there's all kinds of evidence about it. We don't have to get mad about it, but we just have to acknowledge, yes, if I said to you, do you ever have a memory of when you were silenced as a little girl? We all have a memory of when they told us, just be quiet. We're not interested in what you have to say or think, right? So that's kind of cellularly belongs to us. And so this symposium is a way of having women coming together. We're starting out with a keynote of a woman who has studied and created an entire body of work called Suppressed Voices. So we're starting out with a history of what does it look like over the millennia, how women have been silenced. And then we're spending this much time on that. And then the rest of it is about, okay, what does it look like when we speak out? So we're doing Eve Talks, which are our takeoff on TED Talks. Eve stands for Expressing Values That Are Evolutionary. So we have like 15 Eve speakers, and then we're having salons. And the salons are facilitated salons to help women go to the cutting edge in the area of their choice. So there are salons in writing, in memoir, in painting, in digital storytelling. We have a salon in photography and image making and soul collage, etc. So no matter what is your area, blogging, using social network.
And some of these women are quite accomplished. Am I correct? I mean, they're amazing.
Oh, amazing women. We're giving awards to a Pulitzer Prize winning writer, Native American Linda Hogan, Native American from Iroquois Confederacy, Grammy Award winning musician Joanne Shenandoah, and to June Millington and her partner Ann Hackler, who started the Institute for the Musical Arts, which is a rock and roll camp for girls. And June is a co-founder with her sister of the first women's rock and roll band in this country. She's been called the greatest female guitarist in the industry. So we're going to have all those women on stage performing for us as they get their awards.
And the coolest thing, we were kind of touching on all of these things when we were having our backyard conversation. The coolest theme that I loved that came out of that conversation is sort of like getting all these people there and looking at these amazing women and the notion of, if she can, we can.
Right, because that's how we listen. So so the parameters of the Eve Talks is they have to be able to A, say how they use their creativity to cause a ripple in the world. B, how do they measure that success? How do they know they caused that ripple? And C, they have to be able to inspire the audience, because we're all sitting in the audience listening to their story. And she's going to tell us all the obstacles, because every time you start a creative project, there's plenty of obstacles.
Roadblocks.
They're roadblocks. So they're going to say, this is what I came up against, but I went through anyway. And we're in the audience going, if she can, I can. And remember we talked with Jana in the backyard about it?
Yeah.
Jana said, or you said, somebody goes, if she can, we can! And we said, oh, what a moment of illumination. If she can, we can.
So I think actually that's our takeaway today. If she can, we can. If you can.
If I can, you can. Because
Yeah.
I remember when I was dismissed from the convent, and I didn't know what I could be because I never had a plan B. And I became a waitress for the next 5 years. I was afraid to go to college. I had no idea that I had any creative skills. And so I went back to what I did before the convent, which was waiting on tables.
That's right. I was in that club too.
Yeah.
In my 20s.
So if we can, you can.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for our show today. I'm just going to leave it on that really high note. And I want to thank my very special guest and friend, Jan Phillips. Thank you so much. Please check out her website. It's janphillips.com.
And go to Living Kindness.
Yes.
Go to livingkindness.org to see more about the symposium, because if you're on the East Coast, you want to come.
Absolutely.
It's a banquet for your soul.
I love that, a banquet for your soul. And I hope that this was that for you too as well. And thanks very much for joining our show today. I'm the Tuesday Muse here with Jan Phillips. Thanks so much. We'll see you again soon.
Bye now.